BBC Two, and Thursday wouldn't be Thursday without this.
Sit tight for a Top Gear world first. Yours truly, Tiff Needell, joins the ranks of Irvine and Herbert to put Jaguar's new F1 car through its paces. And it's out of this world.
Also on tonight's show, do you know your VTEC from your Turbo? Vicky reveals all. Little and Large, that's new metal from Vauxhall and Hyundai. And there's more on the utter joy of Jaguar.
Jaguar, the elder statesman of the Executive Car Club. As English as a rainy test match, and with the Terry Thomas warmth, it's the perfect adornment for your gravel drive. Well, you can forget all those cosy images because Jaguar is back racing and is once again making road cars with attitude. Like this, the XKR Silverstone.
It's got the understated, genteel, curved lines that are part of the Jaguar pedigree. After losing the plot through the 70s and 80s, Jaguar's claws are lashing back at the Germans with stonking V8s and stately home interiors. The lavish upholstery and wooden panelling are the same as in the old XKR, albeit slightly different trim. Though, for the near 67 grand asking price, there's no change in performance. So, where's the extra 6,680 quid gone?
They've spent the money under here. The steering, suspension and brakes have been beefed up and tightened. And of course, this thing sits on the biggest wheels and tyres Jaguar has ever put on a production car.
Hiding under those telltale bonnet vents is a 4-litre supercharged V8 giving 370 brake, which rockets this beast to 60 in a gnat's over 5 seconds with a limited top speed of 155 miles an hour.
The power delivery is really smooth, all the way to 6,000 RPM. And the automatic gearbox is quite a delight because it just gently goes from one gear up to the next. But it's the corners which I enjoy most. Down to second, traction off, turn in. Little jiggy jig from the rear end. She nearly lost it. Love it. For such a big luxury coupe, this thing handles incredibly well. And the brakes, let's try the brakes. Very respectable. Those discs are the size of Mini's wheels. Everything about this car is just big. And yet, it will dance through corners with a lot of grace and a lot of agility.
The stiffened suspension suits my racy style and makes this XKR handle like a slip of a sports car. You can have some serious fun with it. But the image of some Jags is still a bit businessman, and for that, there's the XJR. It is the plutocrat of the road. Its warmth and charm are a match for the uber-cool Deutsche Mechanikers. You might not move over for a Merc, but when a Jag glides into your mirror, the chances are you'll doff your hat accordingly.
For such a big car, it is incredibly effortless to drive. But this is one cat that has sharper claws than you might think. OK, it doesn't have the poise of the XK, but it can be a lot livelier than it looks. This is one executive cruiser that has personality as well as presence. It's sophisticated, it's graceful, and it holds a British passport. And if that wasn't enough, lurking beneath that long bonnet is the same 4-litre V8 supercharged engine that powers the XKR. So, gut-wrenching acceleration and a career-ending top speed.
At 55 grand, it's not cheap, and you might have to sell an artwork or two for fuel bills, but your life will be enriched in other ways. So there you have it, Jaguar. The friendly face of executive motoring is back with a snarl.
Now, I may not be ready for the pipe and slippers routine just yet, but even a hot hatch queen like myself has been wooed by the charms of Jaguar. Just a little bit. Oh, stay with us, because Quentin will be showing you how you can buy the most beautiful Jaguar from Mondeo money.
Bricks. What can you say about them? Well, they're rectangular and functional, perfect for building walls and houses, but not something you'd look at and call a work of art.
And they're not something most car designers would look to for inspiration either. They usually favour sexy swoops, curves and angles to entice the buyer. But not Vauxhall. They've decided to apply the brick philosophy to this new boxy baby, the Aguila. In this case, function dominates form.
In fact, the Aguila is based on Japan's favourite car, the Wagon R, and was jointly developed by Suzuki. But to make it more appealing to us Europeans, it's got bigger wheels and great big sad puppy dog eyes. But is this pathetic pooch look enough to make us want to take it home?
The aesthetically compromised Aguila sits below the Corsa in the Vauxhall range and in the same market segment as Ford's Ka and Seat's Arossa, but it's more like a Daewoo Matiz. It's a little box on wheels, or if you're Vauxhall, a mini people carrier. But the Aguila is not so mini when it comes to space. There's stacks of it.
And there's certainly enough headroom for Michael Jordan in a top hat. But other than space, there is absolutely nothing about the interior to get you overexcited. You might have expected something quirky, but it's all standard Vauxhall in this rather nasty wipe-clean plastic. And as for the controls, you'd get better quality on a toddler's toy. There are, however, lots of cubby holes and cup holders, and Vauxhall have even supplied, litter trays, should you need them. It is surprisingly good to drive for what is essentially a tall, short box. There's not much roll around corners, and a narrow body, tight turning circle and good visibility make it a useful in-town tool. This is the 1.2 litre version, but even the 1 litre feels fairly brisk around here. However, 60 takes an interminable 17 seconds, and that's with no passengers. Add 3 more people and a boot full of holiday luggage on the motorway, and it would be like pushing an elephant uphill. So I'd stick to the 1.2 litre version, which is nearly as frugal and very much perkier.
So don't expect power and performance. This car is the epitome of practical.
Both models have electronic power steering as standard, so it makes them very easy to park. But the main point of the Aguila is space. Those slabby sides make the most of its diminutive size, and the back seats fold down completely flat, making this huge cavernous load area. So you could take your entire garden to the tip, or perhaps a couple of Shetland ponies on a scenic tour of Cheltenham.
And that's the point. If you want a tiny workhorse that's cheap to run, you'll love the Aguila. It's certainly no beauty, but with prices starting from around £7,000, you can lug a lot for your money. Function before form, you see.
Earlier on, we saw Vicky being passionate about modern Jaguars, which has made me ask a question. Why does Jaguar's star just carry on rising and rising? Why can they do no wrong? Well, I think it's because it's a very complicated brand. It's the brand we love to love. And here's the thing, when you say the word Jaguar, you don't think of an animal, you think of a car, and that's how powerful it is. But to really understand why Jags tickle our hearts with such delicate fingers, first, we need a history lesson.
Sex bomb, you're my sex bomb, and baby, you can turn me on, baby, you can turn me on.
When the E-Type first appeared in March '61, the world stood back and sighed in admiration. It was, and still is, the most beautiful car ever, and one that could touch nearly 150 straight off the showroom carpet. Plus, it cost a third of the price of an Aston or Ferrari. This isn't a car, it's pure, unadulterated art.
Now, there was a time back in the mid-80s when a flat-floor 3.8 Roadster would command £120,000. But since then, prices have slipped back. And in real money terms, you pay no more for your Jaguar E-Type than people did back in 1961. 2,000 quid then, between 25 and 35 grand now. That's inflation for you. So what we have is a real buying opportunity. The next question is, which E-Type?
Those first 3.8s may be the most romantic, but they've got spongy brakes, glowworm headlights, agonising seats and a gearbox that will eventually drive you mad. The 2+2s may be more practical and roomy, but that steep screen and high roofline muck up the glorious lines. That's why a nice 2+2 is only 12 grand. No, my favourite is the 4.2. You get an all-synchro gearbox, more comfortable seats, stronger brakes, and it makes it a whole lot more fun to drive.
But if you want an E-Type that really feels modern, then go for a V12. They've got better brakes, better seats, more room, and power steering. They're not as lithe or as gorgeous as those early cars, but you can use them every day. But before we all get terribly, terribly carried away, you have to remember that some of these old dowagers are nearly 40 years old. So buying an E-Type requires a very steady hand. People used to marvel how Jaguar did it for the money. I'll tell you how they did it for the money. They built these things to a cost, and not very well either. Just look at this front apron. You throw this away, you start again. As for the sills, you wouldn't get any sort of rust inhibitor in them, so they had condensation in them from day one. And look at that. They started to rust the moment they were delivered. You have to remember that the E-Type has what's known as a monocoque construction, so there's no chassis. So if you get rot here, you compromise the structural integrity of the tub. Look at this here. We've got a radius arm hanger here. It's very structural, it's very important. It's gone. Now, you could cheerfully spend 60, 70, 80,000 pounds getting this 4.2 Roadster back into apple pie order. I say, why? By far the shrewdest, the cleverest way to buy an E-Type is to make sure that somebody else has paid all the bills. This 1964 3.8 fixed head I'm driving has been completely restored. Somebody has spent the thick end of £60,000 getting it into as new condition, yet you could buy this car today for £30,000 odd, and that's less than a 4-litre Jaguar S-Type. And I know which one's going to turn more heads.
And that's probably why, in all the surveys, the E is still the world's most desirable car. You drive everywhere lit in your own personal spotlight. A permanent shaft of gold. Every eye is yours.
So this bullet-shaped icon is one of the reasons why Jaguar is probably the most emotionally charged and magical car brand in the world.
Stay tuned for Top Gear's Formula One world exclusive when Tiff drives Jaguar's R1.
Sometimes a girl just isn't satisfied with a standard engine. But luckily, there are hundreds of ways in which to make your car more powerful, from fuel injection to nitrous oxide and every stop in between. Now, a couple of terms that are frequently bandied around my local pub are VTEC and turbo. But what do they actually mean? And what do they actually do? Well, settle down, class. It's time for a lesson. Saab are synonymous with turbocharging. Their first came in 1977. This is the latest 9.3 that hits 60 in 6.9 seconds and is good for 146. So, what does a turbocharged engine actually feel like when you're driving? Well, keep it below about 2,000 RPM and everything is pretty normal. But accelerate past that point to let the turbo kick in, and it puts a massive big grin on your face. But what exactly is going on here? Let me explain. Imagine that this is a normal engine with the exhaust coming out here. Now, with a turbo, What happens is some of that exhaust gas is pumped back into the turbine, which compresses the air, which is then crammed back into the engine. And basically, the more air that goes in, the more power comes out. Turbocharging can make a pretty dull car into something more bearable. Back in the 80s, the lowly Metro and Montego both had blowers. And more recently, turbos have given a new lease of life to diesels, making the old smokers a little more tolerable.
But don't let that put you off. Turbos are responsible for some good things as well. Though in truth, the turbo is just a crude bolt-on. The turbine that compresses the gases can often take a time to get spinning, and that causes turbo lag, a delay between pressing the accelerator and actually accelerating.
Also, you do get an awful lot of torque steer if you accelerate hard from a standstill. And that's where the front tyres scrabble around for some grip as they try and convert all that grunt into forward motion. Those clever chaps at Honda looked at the whole engine scheme of things and decided that they wanted to boost power, but to keep the engine light and compact too.
Instead of adding odd things, Honda redesigned the inner workings to give us VTEC, launched in '89, and it's fitted to this Honda Accord Type R.
So what is the VTEC experience all about? Well, at low to medium revs, everything is pretty easy going. The engine is reasonably flexible, but there are no big dramas. However, get to 5,500 RPM, the engine barks, the world goes mad, and you just have to hang on.
So what wizardry is at work here then?
It's all to do with valves, the things that let air and fuel into and out of the cylinders. Now, at low speeds, the valves are open just a little way because it's easier for the air and fuel mixture to get sucked into the engine, just like it's easier for me to suck through a straw than it is a drain pipe. But when you accelerate, the engine needs more power and more air and fuel. And quite frankly, the straw isn't up to the job, so in comes the drain pipe. When you get to 5,500 RPM, the valves open a lot and masses of air and fuel gushes into the engine, creating more power. I hate to add, it's not to scale.
There are various variable valve timing systems in many cars, from the Toyota Yaris to Honda's NSX, but they all work on the same Jekyll and Hyde principle.
At low revs, you're driving around with Dr. Jekyll, but at higher revs, as more of the air and fuel potion is downed, out comes the manic Mr. Hyde.
So, if I had to choose between the two power plants, which would I plump for? Well, although the Saab is quicker, the results are pretty close. And you can get your hands on both systems for similar money. Oh, decisions.
But which is best? Well, there's no clear answer. If you love revving it to the red zone, then you'll absolutely adore the VTEC system. But if you prefer your kicks lower down the rev range, then the turbo is a must. For me, it's a bit like choosing between my mother and my father. I just love both setups.
It must be great being old. Lazy days on the lawn, fooling around with your four-legged friend.
It was a bridge too far, the powers that be decided at the time that the lads had to
Endless
go.
opportunities to bore your family with stories about the war. And the chance to stockpile all your favourite 50s foodstuffs. And now there's even more reason for the grey population to rejoice because those nice people at Hyundai have brought you this. The XG. And the first thing you notice about the Hyundai XG is that it's very, very shiny. Extremely, fantastically shiny, in fact. It has this American-style dollar grin grille, wheels with enormous and defiantly tasteless reflective discs, plus a plethora of shimmering badges and inexplicably huge door handles. And the future's looking quite shiny for Hyundai as well at the moment. You voted them most improved manufacturer in this year's JD Power Customer Satisfaction Survey. And if you're the kind of parsimonious pensioner that buys into their more for your money approach, you'll dampen your incontinence pants over this one, because the XG is not only shiny, it's amazingly well kitted. It has to be said that Hyundai's new flagship wants for absolutely nothing. Inside I have leather, mock wood, twin airbags, side airbags, traction control, cruise control, heated electric memory seats, even one of those newfangled mini disc players. But don't worry, it still has a wireless, so you'll be able to listen to the Archers. All it lacks is a holder for your walking stick and a bifocal windscreen. Build quality is good, one of the few bits I'm impressed with. In front, we have a 3-litre V6 engine giving a wholly acceptable 192 brake, so you'll never be late for bowls matches again. It's connected to a smooth 5-speed auto box which was developed with some help from Porsche. Exciting stuff. Well, not really. It'll do 140 and 60 in about 9 and a bit seconds, but you can put all your dual-gate H-matic transmissions in it, but it essentially doesn't change its character, which is a sedate boulevard cruiser. One thing this car is not is sporting. Doesn't sound like it, doesn't feel like it. Sorry. Hyundai are playing the value for money card with the XG, pricing it at an apparently competitive £21,000. And that means it's going to lock horns with things like posh versions of the Vectra and the Mondeo. But if we're talking value for money, we've also got to talk about depreciation. And in my humble opinion, I think this is going to hold its value, like a grand piano hurled from a tower block. If we compare it to the Hyundai Sonata V6, which over 3 years loses an astonishing 75% of its value, then why should this be any better? And with a hit like that, it's really going to eat in to your pension. So do I think the XG is good value for money? £21,000 is a whole hill of money, whichever way you look at it. And a hill of money for a car which is dynamically average. Luxury cars are all about brands. That's why people buy them, what they say about the person behind the wheel. And this brand, well, this brand has all the allure, charisma and desirability of a whisk drive at a Derby and Jane club. And that absence of brand magic means Hyundai have little or no chance of wooing even the most tight-wadded executives. The XG just wouldn't look right in the company car park. No, Hyundai's best bet really is to pitch this car as sedate transport for a certain type of OAP. You know, the kind who still thinks it's okay to wear their slippers in the supermarket. So, nice try, Hyundai, but ask me again in 30 years' time.
The Jaguar marque is steeped in motorsport heritage. At first they simply raced their road cars, but it is their sports car victories at Le Mans that they are best remembered for. 5 times in the 50s and then twice again at the end of the 80s. But now they're broadening their horizons and they built their first ever Grand Prix car, the Jaguar R1. Top Gear had an exclusive invitation to join the team as they prepared for this Sunday's Spanish Grand Prix near Barcelona. So far, just 3 people have piloted the R1. Grand Prix stars Eddie Irvine and Johnny Herbert, plus their test driver Luciano Berti. And I'm about to be only the 4th person in the world to drive one. The R1 is the latest in computer-created carbon fibre technology, costing close to £2 million per car. The airflow over, under and around its body will double its effective weight at 100 miles an hour, quadruple it at 200. Between those speeds, this Jag could quite literally drive upside down, stuck to the ceiling. But back on Earth, first I had to find a seat to fit me.
Well, that's tight, but I mean...
Fine on the floor, but how about in the car?
Oh, get me booming.
Was that?
Can you just move that?
No, I can't move at all. I'm in, but I'm never coming out.
Put the steering wheel on. You're never going to be able to drive like that, though, are you?
No.
You've got to go down a bit further.
You sure the angle of the seat's right? It's very laid back. There's something flashing at me down here. Is that all right? I don't know why, but I'm not doing that, but it's flashing at me.
Insert credit card, usually.
My knees are actually wedged into the roof.
So out went the moulded seat and in went the foam rubber. Now I could fit, but I still had to learn how to make the car work.
OK, Luciano, so I've got it now. So it's gear up, gear down.
Yeah.
That's my clutch. Either side works.
Yeah.
Dashboard there, but just concentrate on the lights for gear change and forget everything else.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a steering wheel as well. Does it steer as well?
Yeah, I think you can drive the car already. I think you
Incredible.
learned the whole thing.
A steering wheel that does everything. First job over, at least I haven't stalled it. And finally I'm out on the track on my own in this incredible Jaguar Grand Prix car around the Catalonian circuit that sees this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix. Turn right now this first corner and then immediately left. I just dared use even half the throttle. 800 horsepower, I've no idea where the limit of grip is. We go this long right-hander, and even at this speed, the bumps feel like sleeping policemen. Where's the straight? This corner goes on forever. Finally, a bit of straight, I can get it full throttle. The corner looms, a tight left-handed hairpin. Second gear. And then a short swerve of acceleration, another corner. The corners are now so close. First gear for this left-hander. Plunging downhill, incredible acceleration, another corner comes up, I've got to fourth, back to second, left, circuit now going uphill, squeeze that throttle, I still dared have full power, now approaching the final two corners, this first one flat out in qualifying, and a short downhill shoot before the final long never-ending corner, out to the curb and then this long straight ahead, where finally I can confidently floor it. Fifth, sixth, my vision almost being blurred now. Again into this long right-hander, I can feel the G-force building up. I'm nowhere near the limit of the car, but I can really feel my knees being thrown to the left, my neck muscles woken up. This is a wonderful feeling. I can't believe I'm driving this car. I'm in heaven. One more tight right. And now I have to go to the pits. Final third gear right. And then in fourth flat. As I head into the pits after 3 minutes in heaven. Hoping that this weekend the Jaguar drivers will get to the finish of the Spanish Grand Prix and get those first championship points. And for me, it's just been 2 laps. Back in heaven.
There's no Top Gear next week, but we'll be back in a fortnight when Tiff takes his Elise for a gentle spin. Plus, how Vauxhall's new Astra Coupe shapes up. Good night.
And vote BBC Two next tonight, a satirical pop at the race to be London's mayor.